I remember the first time I saw him. It was late spring in Charleston, South Carolina, the kind of warm, golden evening where the world glows a little too perfect to be real. The air smelled like magnolias and salt. I was working the closing shift at the old bookstore on King Street, half bored, half lost in a poetry anthology when the bell above the door chimed. He walked in, tall and a little too confident for someone in a bookstore that sold more dust than bestsellers. His name was Caleb Morgan. Denim jacket, scuffed boots, green eyes like river glass. He asked where the philosophy section was. I asked if he was trying to impress someone. He smirked. Maybe. Depends on how this goes. I should have known then, people like him don't just walk into your life. They crash into it. Like a storm that leaves flowers blooming in its wake. We spent the entire summer together. Mornings at the dock, drinking burnt gas station coffee. Afternoons getting lost in the winding historic streets, brushing fingertips like it meant nothing, even though it meant everything. And the nights, those were sacred. We'd lie under the stars, him tracing constellations on my skin, me reading to him from dog-eared paperbacks. He'd close his eyes and just listen, like my voice made the world stop spinning. It's like I found the missing part of me, he whispered once, our hands locked like puzzle pieces. You make everything softer. I laughed. You say that now. Wait until I get mad at you. But he never backed away, not from my scars, my silence, or the weight I carried. He leaned in. Always. And I let him. I let him see the dark corners I usually kept hidden. Told him about my mother, who left when I was 7. The father who forgot birthdays. The ache of always being the one who loves more. But Caleb wasn't scared of broken things. He made my laugh louder. My quiet days warmer. He didn't just fall in love with me, he studied me. Understood me. Loved me like it was a language only we spoke. We carved our names into a tree by the marsh, not far from where we first kissed. He said one day, when we were gray and slow and still stupidly in love, we'd come back to that spot and laugh at how young we were. You think we'll make it that far? I asked. He looked at me like the idea of us not making it was the only thing that could ever truly scare him. There's no world where I don't love you, he said. Not one. Looking back, I think I always knew something would take it all away. Nothing that perfect lasts forever. But in those warm, golden days, we were infinite. And for a while, love was enough. The first time it happened, we laughed. I forgot the name of my favorite book. The one I'd read cover to cover at least 20 times. My mind just blanked. Caleb teased me, something light, something sweet. Said I was finally making room in my brain for new memories. But the second time, it scared me. We were driving home from the beach. The sky was peach and lavender, and I suddenly couldn't remember how to get back. Streets I had walked since childhood felt foreign. I gripped the steering wheel harder than I needed to. Caleb reached over and turned down the music. You okay, baby? I lied. Smiled. Just tired. But he knew. He always knew. The tests started 2 weeks later. Blood work, MRIs, quiet waiting rooms where time felt like it moved through syrup. I stopped bringing books with me. Stopped looking up at the other patients. Everything felt too loud, too real. Caleb came with me to every appointment. Always with his hand in mine, thumb tracing lazy circles on my wrist like he could keep me tethered to this version of myself, whole, sharp, here. And then, the diagnosis. Neurodegenerative. Early onset. No cure. Only questions. Only time. Only loss. I cried that night. Not the soft, cinematic tears you see in movies, But the messy, choking sobs that claw their way out when you realize the person you are is slipping through your own fingers. He held me anyway. "Say something," I whispered. "I love you," he said. "Don't you see? I'm going to disappear in front of you." He pulled me closer. "Then I'll memorize every version of you. I'll love you through every stage. Even the ones where you don't remember my name." I broke. Again. But he stayed. Again. We tried to make it normal, at first. Picnics in the park. Sunday pancakes. Reading the same poems, even when I forgot the ending halfway through. He'd gently pick up where I left off, like a partner in some slow, aching dance. But the world around us started to feel paper thin. I forgot birthdays. Missed appointments. Got lost in my own house. And he never raised his voice. Never showed me fear. But I could see it. The way he'd stare at me when he thought I wasn't looking. Like he was counting down the days. One night, I found him in the kitchen at 2 a.m., staring at a cup of tea he hadn't touched. "I can't fix this," he said, voice breaking. "And I fix things, you know? That's what I do." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My brain wouldn't let me find the words. So I just touched his cheek, and he leaned into my hand like it was the last real thing in the world. But the worst part wasn't the forgetting. It was watching him hope. Watching him search for signs that maybe I was getting better. That maybe, just maybe, love could be strong enough to hold me in place. Until one morning. I looked at him across the breakfast table. And for 3 full seconds. I didn't know who he was. That was the moment everything changed. The look in his eyes, it cracked something in me. Because I knew he'd seen it. The forgetting. The fading. And suddenly, love wasn't enough to hold us together. Not anymore. I watched Caleb fall apart one quiet hour at a time. He never admitted it, not out loud, but I saw the way the light drained from his eyes, piece by piece, day by day. I think he believed if he just held on tightly enough, I wouldn't drift away. That if he loved me hard enough, I'd stay. But love, no matter how fierce, can't outmuscle time. Or the brain. Or fate. After the morning I forgot his name, something changed in him. He stopped making jokes. Stopped shaving. His voice got quieter. He'd wake before the sun, just to watch me sleep, maybe hoping I'd open my eyes and be me again. And when I did, I'd sometimes see the tears on his face, silent, unclaimed, as if they had no right to be there. He still cooked for me, dressed me when I forgot how sleeves worked. Still brushed my hair with those slow, careful hands like I was glass. But he wasn't there anymore. Not fully. The man I fell in love with, bright, witty, bold, was shrinking. Replaced by someone who moved like his bones were heavier than they used to be. Someone whose smile never quite reached his eyes. He became a shadow of the man who once spun me in the kitchen at midnight. A silhouette in the room, always watching, always grieving even as I sat right there beside him. One day, I found him in our hallway, pressed up against the wall, sobbing into the crook of his elbow. I stood there, not knowing if I should go to him or give him space. Not knowing if he wanted me anymore. Not knowing if I was still me. When he saw me, he wiped his face too fast, too hard. Like pain had to be hidden now. Like it might scare me. "You're not supposed to see that," he said hoarsely. "You're not supposed to carry this alone," I replied. His eyes flicked to mine. "I'm losing you. But I can't lose myself too." But he was losing himself. I saw it in the way he started snapping at doctors. How he kept researching experimental treatments late into the night, scrolling through forums, scribbling names of specialists like some obsessed detective in a crime drama. He stopped answering his phone. Quit his job. His friends faded away, not because they didn't care, but because Caleb wouldn't let them close. Wouldn't let anyone witness his unraveling. He only had space for me, and I was becoming a stranger. I remember one night, he sat me down on the couch. Looked me in the eyes with that desperate fire I used to love. "I'm not giving up," he said. "Not on you. Not on us." I nodded. I wanted to believe him. But I could already feel the edges of my world blurring. "What if I forget everything?" I whispered. He took my hand in both of his. Kissed my knuckles. His voice cracked. "Then I'll remember enough for both of us." But I knew the truth. Love was making him disappear too. He was breaking himself to keep me whole. Shattering quietly under the weight of watching me go. And I didn't know how to stop it. Or if I even had the strength to try. It happened on a Wednesday. The kind of dull, gray afternoon where time feels like it's standing still. I had been sitting at the window, staring out at the same tree for over an hour. The wind shifted. A bird landed. I think I knew the name of it once. Now it was just something with wings. Caleb walked into the room holding a folder. Not his usual soft voice, not the exhausted patience he'd worn like armor. This time, his energy was different. Focused. Electric. "I found something," he said. His hands were shaking. It started with a name on a clinical report, a detail from one of the neurologists we'd seen 3 months ago. Caleb, in his sleepless desperation, had gone back through every file, every printed page, every late-night forum post. And there it was. A drug trial. Not for my diagnosis exactly, but adjacent. Experimental. Controversial. Pulled quietly from the shelves 2 years ago after a patient in the test group suffered an adverse reaction. But that wasn't the part that made Caleb's voice shake. It was the manufacturer. A biotech company with a history of cutting corners, burying negative results, and, he believed, fast-tracking a version of the compound under a different name. A version I had been prescribed. Without our consent. "Your symptoms got worse after that medication," he said, pacing. "That was the turning point. They gave it to you off-label. Unapproved. And they didn't tell us." I didn't understand everything he said. My mind couldn't keep up like it used to. But I saw the fire in his eyes. The fury. The hope. Something about the way he gripped the edge of the table made me feel like, for the first time in months, he wasn't drowning. He was fighting. The next days were a blur of phone calls, printed records, medical requests. He contacted lawyers. Journalists. Even old colleagues from his tech job to help him trace internal emails from whistleblowers in the company. I watched him come alive again, not the same Caleb, but a sharper one. Angrier. Less patient. Driven by something deeper than love now. Justice. We traveled to Atlanta, where the company's head office stood like a glass cathedral to power. I don't remember much about the meeting, only that I held his hand and listened as he spoke with more strength and clarity than I'd seen in months. "You took something from her," he said. "But I'm not letting you take everything." The company denied it all, of course. Legal language. Disclaimers. But the moment came when Caleb slid the folder across the table, highlighted emails, test records, a timeline they couldn't explain away. There was silence. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the ticking of a wall clock. They settled quickly after that. The money didn't matter to him. He didn't want a payout. What he wanted was accountability. The story told. The records corrected. The doctor who'd slipped the prescription in without warning, fired. And when the article went live in the Atlantic Weekly, with my photo and his words printed across 4 long pages, he didn't smile. He just held me and whispered, "They can't erase you." But victory comes at a price. The fight had taken what little calm we had left. We were both exhausted, fractured. And though Caleb had pulled back the curtain on what had been done to me, it didn't undo what was already unraveling. I was still fading. Only now, the world knew why. After the article went live, Caleb changed. Not overnight. Not in a way the world would notice. But I saw it. Something in him hardened. The boyish warmth he used to wear like a second skin was gone. His laughter, once so frequent and full, became rare, almost foreign. He still took care of me, still spoke gently, still loved me with that same relentless loyalty. But something in his soul had shifted. He was no longer just the man who loved me. He had become the man who had watched the world fail me, and had decided never to let that happen again. He cut ties with almost everyone. Friends who hadn't checked in. Colleagues who hadn't asked questions. Even his sister, who once begged him to take a break and just accept what's happening. He didn't want peace. He wanted control. He wanted answers. And when there were no more battles left to fight, he started building something new, something ruthless. Caleb launched a foundation. Not in my name, he said. He didn't want people reducing me to a headline or a diagnosis. Instead, it was a quiet war chest for other families who'd been silenced by corporations, failed by medicine, ignored by policy. I watched him pour himself into it. Fundraisers. Campaigns. Whistleblower protections. He testified before committees, met with senators. His face, once only familiar to me, began to appear on news channels, screens, press briefings. But the price of this transformation was him. Gone were the late-night drives to nowhere, the notes he used to leave me in the fridge, the dancing in the living room to old Springsteen songs. The man who once lived for the now had become a man entirely defined by the before, and by what he could still salvage from it. Sometimes, I'd catch him staring at me like he was searching for a door into the past. He'd reach out and tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear. Say something soft like, "You're still in there." I know it. And I'd want so badly to answer. To tell him I remembered the first time he kissed me, the way his thumb always brushed my knuckles when we held hands. But the memories didn't always come when I called them. They flickered like old film reels, out of order, out of reach. One night, I found him sitting on the bathroom floor, still dressed in a suit from a fundraiser, tie half untied, his eyes glassy and distant. "You okay?" I asked. It took him a second to respond. "They keep calling me a hero," he whispered. "I don't feel like one." "Why not?" "Because the person I did it all for is slipping away." I sat beside him, my head on his shoulder. I didn't have the words to fix what was breaking in him. I barely had the words to name it anymore. But I felt it. His grief. His fury. His desperate, silent hope that he could still bring me back. In loving me through my unraveling, Caleb had unraveled, too. But in his unraveling, he had become someone else. Not just a fighter. Not just an advocate. But a man shaped, forged, by love and loss, and the unbearable truth that the two are always intertwined. He once told me, "If I could trade places with you, I would." And I believe him. But maybe, this was his burden to bear. To carry the weight of memory for both of us. Even if it broke him. There's a softness to endings no one tells you about. People think it's all panic and hospital beds, flatlines, and final words. But the truth is, endings are quieter than that. They come in gentle moments, in long silences, in the way a name lingers on your lips even after you've forgotten who it belongs to. My mind has become a hallway of closed doors. Some days, I open one and find a memory waiting, Caleb's smile in the sunlight, the smell of his cologne, his voice reading to me in that low, steady rhythm. Other days, there's nothing. Just the sound of the wind. Just the feeling that something beautiful once lived here. But through it all, he stays. Caleb visits me every morning. Brings the same coffee I used to make for him, though I rarely drink it now. He reads to me from the books I used to love. Helps me dress. Walks me down the garden path of the care home like we're still in Charleston, like the summer never ended. He smiles for me. But it's not the smile I remember. It's heavier. Weathered. Worn down by time and grief and devotion that never got a happy ending. And still, he shows up. Every single day. One afternoon, I looked up from my chair and asked, "Do I know you?" He didn't flinch. Just took my hand in his. "I'm someone who loves you," he said. And for a brief, shining moment, I remembered. Not everything. Not the whole story. But the feeling of him. Of us. Of a love too big for one lifetime. I cried. And so did he. And it was okay. Because that moment was enough. Now I live mostly in stillness. The world moves slowly. My thoughts drift like leaves in the wind. But Caleb has become the keeper of our past. He carries the weight of our memories like sacred relics, telling me stories of a life I once knew, our bookstore meet cute, our nights under the stars, our carved names in the marshland tree. Sometimes I believe him. Sometimes I don't understand. But I always feel safe. And that, too, is love. He once told me, love and pain are one. You can't have one without the other. Back then, I didn't understand what he meant. But now I do. Because the pain in his eyes each time he looks at me isn't weakness. It's proof. Proof that what we had was real. That even though I'm slipping away, our story isn't. It lives in him. In the lines on his face. In the fire he used to fight for others. In the way he still holds my hand, even when mine forgets how to hold back. One morning, as he tucked the blanket around me, I managed to whisper, "Thank you." He looked at me, startled. "For what?" he asked. "For staying," I said. He smiled, and this time it was the old smile. The one I fell in love with in that dusty bookstore on King Street. So here we are. He, the shadow of a man who once danced with me in the rain. Me, the echo of a woman who once recited poetry under the stars. But together, we are still something. Something fierce. Something sacred. Something that proves love isn't measured by years or memories or even presents. It's measured by what survives. And ours? It survived everything. Even this.